Okay, you up for this?
I'm up for it.
All right. I think the best thing to do is to take 2 cars.
Okay.
I want you to do the talking, and I'll be your backup, okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
There could be kids, so we got to be aware of that. And if the kids take off or we need to split them up, that's what we'll do. I'll go with the kids.
Okay.
All right? Finally, I think we need to be aware of any potential medical emergency because it's a pretty intense situation, and we don't know what we're walking into, so just be attuned to that. Be looking for that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go.
Hello, Mrs. Stafford?
Yes.
Special Agents DeShazer and Sproul, FBI. May we come in, please? Mrs. Stafford, we're sorry to have to tell you this, but there was an accident this morning, and as a result of that accident, your husband has died.
A death notification is one of the most difficult assignments that you will have as a law enforcement officer. Hello, my name is Dennis Hayes. I'm an FBI chaplain and the Human Services Director for the Onondaga County Sheriff's Department in Syracuse, New York. In the past 20 years, I have been involved in hundreds of death notifications. A poorly planned death notification can significantly increase the trauma experienced by survivors. And this presentation will outline some important points in making a death notification. The notification should be timely. It's important that the family not learn of the death through other sources, especially the media or through a phone call. The first professionals encountering the family should give the notification. Needless trauma can result from lying to the family by telling them that their loved one has been injured and then transporting the family to the hospital in radio silence so that someone else can make the difficult notification. Finding where family members are located is an important part and sometimes a very difficult part of the investigative process. When the notification is made in a business or at a school, make sure you do that in a private place. A team approach is preferable. Take 2 or more vehicles.
Okay.
In the case of a medical or other such emergency, it's important to have that additional transportation necessary to transport someone to a medical facility. It's important, too, to transport friends and family members that are needed to provide support after you leave. Team members should be clear on the roles that each will take, and this will reduce confusion. One member should be the spokesperson.
I want you to do the talking, and I'll be your backup, okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
And their purpose is to identify the team members, to make sure that the notification is to the correct person, and to verbally give the death notification. Other members of the team can provide support to children and to other people who are present.
There could be kids, so we got to be aware of that. And if the kids take off or we need to split them up, that's what we'll do. I'll go with the kids.
Okay.
When approaching the house, again, before going to the door, make sure the roles of each member. Be aware of officer safety issues. It's always a primary concern. Identify the team members to the person answering the door, and this would be done by the spokesperson.
Hello, Mrs. Stafford?
Yes.
Special Agents DeShazer and Sproul, FBI. May we come in, please?
Sure.
And make sure that the notification will be to the correct person by asking for their identity. And then ask to enter into the residence. Notifications should not be done on doorsteps. Once inside, ask if there is anybody else at home, especially children. And if someone else is at home, then the spokesperson should begin by saying, "I have some disturbing news for you. If you'd like to have your children or others in the house present, then please call them here now." Always ask the family members to sit down, and this gives them a moment to brace themselves for the information that follows, information that they now suspect. Deliver the notification directly and clearly.
Mrs. Stafford, we're sorry to have to tell you this, but there was an accident this morning, and as a result of that accident, your husband has died.
Tell them that their family member has died. Do not use euphemisms such as, he passed away or he didn't make it. And then be silent, something that's difficult for all of us. Resist the urge to try to fix their pain or make it better by continuing to talk. You have to give them time to process this traumatic information. Be prepared for a variety of responses. Don't let your guard down. It's not unlike people in these very difficult times to yell and to begin screaming and to become emotionally disturbed. Listen to them. Your presence and your compassion and your non-judgment are the most important factors that you can give them at this time. Don't use platitudes. Don't try to minimize their loss with statements like, it was God's will, or be strong now for your children. And don't ever tell children that they are now the man or the woman of the house. That's really unfair. Provide information. Family members will have many questions and concerns. Answer them truthfully. Assist them as best you can. This is a very difficult time for them, and it's a difficult time for you. Provide some ongoing support for them. Don't ever leave family members alone at their residence or at a hospital. Offer to call friends, other family members, co-workers, chaplains, or clergy. And don't forget children and adolescents. Ask them too. Sometimes these young people are left out. Offer transportation for the family members and remain with the family until the friends or the relatives finally arrive. And when they do arrive, take a few minutes to introduce yourself and to review with these individuals and again with the family members the immediate concerns, such as the location of the body, funeral arrangements that may have been discussed, or others who have been contacted. If the notification is made in a school or at a business, make sure that the survivor has someone to support them before they leave for their residence, and that someone is willing to drive them home. Write down important information. Survivors have a real difficult time remembering details. It's common for family members to demand to see the body of their loved one. Prepare the family as to what they see before the body is finally viewed, especially if the body has extensive damage. And this may mean coordination with the hospital or with the medical examiner's office. When the situation appears stable, ask if there is any other information that you can provide, offer condolences again to the family, and then leave your business card with appropriate phone numbers, and then leave the residence. After leaving, the team members should take some time to debrief one another. Discuss how each person is doing. It's important at this point for team members to be supportive of one another and to listen now to each other as he or she describes their experience in dealing with this very difficult situation, both physically and emotionally. The team members should take a few minutes to review the steps of the process that they have been involved in and decide if improvements could be made in future notifications. Law enforcement officers attending the National Academy at the FBI training facility in Quantico have volunteered to share some of their death notification experiences with you.
One of the first calls I got out of the chute was to get a hold of dispatch. And they said, we need you to deliver a death message to a family because their son, who's 19 years old, in a college town about 300 miles south of where I was, had died from binge drinking. Oh, I'd never had any experience in something like this before. How do you deliver a death message and tell somebody that their son is dead? I approached another officer and he suggested that I write all the information down on who they needed to contact and what arrangements needed to be made, so I had it ahead of time, which is a wise thing to do. When I approached the house, I found my hands getting clammy. I was getting more and more nervous, and it was a very nice residential home, very well kept, and a nice older couple. And as I started to give them the news, and of course I tried to put on the most somber and serious face that I could, I started to become more anxious and more nervous than they did. I found myself, as you would in police training, going from the anxiety level of the white zone into the yellow zone, into orange, into red, into black, where I literally forgot almost anything that I was even saying. I couldn't get out of there quick enough. And in looking back on it, what I would have liked to have done is, first of all, had some training in how to do this. And secondly, I think I would have liked to have a support structure there, not only for the family, but also for myself.
When a young rookie and I worked a traffic accident in which a young man who was about 18 or 19 years old was killed in a traffic accident about 3 in the morning. We had to go and make death notification to the family. They lived about a mile away from the accident scene. As we pulled into the drive, the deputy asked me, the young rookie asked me how we were going to make the notification, and I told him we just see what opportunity presented itself. I knocked on the door, and a young girl, 10 or 11 years old, allowed us inside and called for her mother and father. Leading off the living room was the stairway, and I saw the mother appear at the top of the steps in her nightgown. And as she saw us, she looked down at me and she asked, "Is my son dead?" I said, "Yes, ma'am, he is." At that time, she got her husband, they came down, and we gave them some facts of the case, and then we left. And as we went outside and were getting into the police car, the young rookie by the name of Tom, he let me know that he was upset with me, and I said, "Well, what are you talking about?" And he said, "I can't believe you just broke it to her like that." And I stood there for a minute, and we got in the car, and I said, "Well, Tom, how would you have done it?" And of course, he said he didn't know. And I gave him a lesson. I said, "Tom, you have to understand there's no easy way in the world to tell someone their child is dead."
As watch commander one night, we had had a shooting, and the victim was not expected to live. While we had the crime scene, 2 individuals walked up, and they were apparently brothers of the man who had been shot. They had been notified by a friend, and they were very distraught and wanted to find out if their brother was indeed the one who was shot and if he would live. The officers on the street were fairly new, and they had never been aware of an incident like that. They initially tried to tell the 2 brothers that they had to leave the scene, and I noticed this and walked up and talked to them. And I explained to the officers that although we're police officers and we have to make sure that we secure the scene and do the investigation properly, we also have to make sure that the humanitarian side comes into play and make sure that we talk to them and make them understand what's going on. In this case, we took the 2 brothers aside, we explained to them that their brother had indeed been shot, and we ended up allowing a minute with the brother who eventually died.
The driver of the vehicle was 17 years old. I located my department chaplain. I picked him up. On the way to the home, we had discussed a way of passing on this bad information. As we pulled into the driveway, I could see through the kitchen window, I could see the mother doing dishes at the kitchen window, and I remarked to the chaplain that in a moment we're going to devastate this lady's life for the rest of her life. As we got out of the cruiser and walked up to the house, knocked on the front door, she came to the door, and when I introduced ourselves, she let us in. And at that point in time, I asked the lady if she had a daughter named Chris. She said yes, and I said, "Well, I have some bad information for you, bad news, that your daughter Chris has been involved in a car accident, and she was killed." And right away she said, "No, she hasn't. My daughter Chris is right there." Individuals between the ages of 16 and 21 oftentimes will have false identification. I think it's very important for agencies to double and triple check any identification they possibly can, and take the time to make those types of inquiries so that the proper and appropriate identification to family members can be made.
I was contacting a person that was approximately 73 years old. When I knocked on the door, a nurse's aide answered the door and advised me that the person I was contacting had medical problems and was restricted to her bed. I then explained to the nurse's aide that I was here to do a death notification and asked her how well she knew the party that she was assisting with. She didn't know her very well and informed me that she was leaving in a short period of time. I then asked her to go up to the room where she was staying and announce my presence, but don't tell her what happened. When she went up to the room and said that there was a state trooper at the door, I immediately heard some screaming, oh no, not again. I lost my 2 kids, he's here to tell me about another death." At that point I went up to the room and directly told her the bad news, that her husband had died of a heart attack. She had extreme medical conditions. She was very upset. She immediately grabbed a hold of me. At that point, I asked her if she'd like the nurse's aide to stay with her and if there was anybody else I could contact. She informed me that no, she didn't want the nurse's aide to be at her residence. She was leaving. And at that point, she said the closest person was her sister, her only other family member, who was 3 hours away. When you receive information on a party, attempt to contact the party's place of business, or if it's a teenager, the school. Hopefully they'll have emergency data cards where you can get as much information on the parties as possible, so that when you contact the residents, you can have parties with you that are close to the family and will be able to comfort the family. But if they're not available, be there for them until these people arrive.
And my training officer knocks on the door opens up, and he looks to me. And I realized for the very first time that he expected me to make this notification, wherein all the way to the location I had thought about what I was going to observe and how I would learn from it, not that I was going to be the person on the spot. Before you go to a location, talk with your partner, think about what you're going to say, anticipate some of the reactions, because everybody reacts differently. Everything from just denial to, in some cases, violence, because you're the bringer of bad news.
To recap some of these teaching points, death notifications should be given in a timely fashion, with compassion, clearly stated, and with a consideration for officer safety. Trauma surgeons have suggested that there is a golden hour, 60 minutes from the time of a serious accident to the time of arrival at a trauma center, during which a patient has the best chance for survival. The death notification process is similar to the golden hour. A delayed or a poorly planned notification can really compound the trauma of the survivors, further compromising their coping skills in the future. For this reason, your compassion, your care, clarity, and your timely response are critical elements that help a traumatized family on their journey to survive and process a tragic event and loss. By having a structure to the death notification process, you can protect against jeopardizing your own safety or the safety of those with whom you are dealing, and you can avoid creating additional emotional distress for that family as well as yourself.